Saludos mis estimados amigos, soy Pablo Hernández de Ciclismo 360 y hoy tengo una gran entrevista para ustedes. Se trata de la ciclista Hannah Otto, excelente ciclista, excelente persona, ser humano. Espero que disfruten de la entrevista. Well, Hannah, this is a great pleasure for me. You are the one and only Hannah Otto. You know, it's no longer a fiction, right? It's Otto.
Correct. Yes. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's as I told you before, it's a great opportunity for me because, I mean, you are a pro cyclist. You have been involved in a number of great big races throughout your career. But I want to start with a basic question. How did you start in cycling?
Yeah, I found endurance sport very early in my life. So I started playing soccer, and I would always ask my mom to get to the field early to run laps before the rest of the team arrived. And so as a 9-year-old kid, I would get to the field and run laps. And one day my mom said, "Well, would you rather just do a running race?" And so I signed up for a running race and I went to this little kids fun run, and there was a booth at that race advertising a triathlon. And as a 9-year-old, I pointed at that booth and said, "Actually, that's what I want to do. I want to race triathlon." And so I raced triathlon for the next 11 years of my life. So I raced triathlon from age 9 to age 20. I raced all over the world racing triathlon, and I won the Xterra Amateur World Championship 2 times at age 16 and 17. And then at age 20, I had the opportunity to race mountain bikes full time as a professional. And at that time, I was in college, and I loved mountain biking. And I just felt like it was an opportunity I couldn't turn down. And so I decided to go all in on the mountain biking. And now I've been racing mountain bikes professional for 7 years, and I absolutely love it. I wouldn't have it any other way.
Man, that really sounds great. But uh, was there something that was that kind of turn around point where you said, "Okay, I'm going mountain biking"? There was something that somebody said, somebody you saw there out there?
Um, well, I think so I raced triathlon, like I said, and I raced triathlon for the Cliff Pro team at the time. And they at one point decided they were no longer going to support triathletes. And so they told me that I could continue on with the team as a mountain biker, or I could leave the team and continue to race triathlon. And they would support me in that. And I could be a sponsored athlete, but I wouldn't be able to be a part of the team anymore. And with them offering to support me as a mountain biker and go through that transition with me, it was the perfect opportunity to make that change and to attempt to be a professional mountain biker. And so that was the moment where I really decided, okay, I'm going all in on this. I'm really going to give this a try. And I think, I mean, that was the moment when I made that transition officially. But I think, it was over the course of the next several years that my identity really shifted from a triathlete to a mountain biker. And part of that was racing my bike in college and winning multiple national championships in college, and just discovering this love for the bike and how much further it could take me than, for example, running. The bike is this beautiful avenue in which you can see so much more of the world because you are moving faster, but at the same time, you're still moving slow enough to take in the scenery.
You know, I think probably you agree with me that the change you just mentioned in the support of the triathlete opened a door really wide open to a world of opportunities, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And that's an opportunity I will forever be grateful for. And this sport is so much about opportunity. And I feel like every day every day doors are opening for me. And that's something I love about this sport, is that there are truly endless opportunities, endless races, endless trails, just a whole plethora of things that you can explore.
Oh yes, and there is a lot of things to explore. Hannah, you mentioned before that you were a triathlete for 11 years. That's a really long time.
Yeah.
Did you find any, I, for the lack of a better expression, any situations where you said, well, I want to quit, uh, and you had to do something strong, something firm to just stay focused and keep on?
I don't feel like there was ever a time when I wanted to quit, but there were certainly a lot of barriers that made it difficult to keep going. So one that comes to mind, for example, was when I went to college, I had a lot of opportunities to compete as a runner in college, or a cyclist in college, or a swimmer in college. But there are very few colleges that would allow me to do all three and continue to pursue that pursuit of being a triathlete. And so again, that was a moment where I had to stay really focused on my goals and really focused on what I wanted to achieve. And I worked really hard to find a school that would allow me to compete in all three of those disciplines and to just explore what I'm capable of. Because while I ultimately did end up being a cyclist, I think a lot of those decisions have to come in your own timing. And that's something that I hear a lot of junior athletes talk about, is maybe they enjoy more than one sport, or maybe they enjoy cycling and something musical. And I think that a lot of juniors feel like they have to pick early on, or maybe even pick what cycling discipline they like early on. But I think those decisions have to come in your own time, and no one else can force you into one of those decisions.
Uh, yes, the process of decision making is a very important one, because the wrong decision you make is a tough time you will have later. So we all really have to nail those decisions. Uh, During your time in college, running, swimming, cycling, and studying, because I mean, you were not there just doing sports, you were studying there a profession. How did you manage all that?
Yeah, it was a lot. That was without a doubt the busiest time of my life. I got two different degrees. So I have one degree in athletic training, which is a healthcare profession. Athletic trainers help to prevent, diagnose, and rehabilitate athletic injuries. And then I also have a degree in exercise science, which is sports physiology and coaching. And so I was juggling a lot. And I think a lot of that really came down to, again, the desire to be doing it all. If you don't have that internal desire to do everything that you're doing, I think it becomes really easy to give up or to let something slide. But because I wanted it all, I wasn't willing to let anything slip. And so time management was obviously a huge thing. But in college, I was on my bike before 6 a.m. every day to get my workout in with everything else that I had going on. And so I think that's something that helps me now in my own coaching, is being able to relate to people, because I know that as a professional, cycling now gets to be my priority. But for most people who are trying to be the best that they can be on the bike, they're also juggling things like work and family. And because of my time juggling everything in school, I can relate to that, and I can help people work through managing their life and their goals.
How different will it be your coaching if you were not able to relate to those people you help?
Oh my goodness. I think it would be very, very difficult. Coaching surprises me constantly and in the best possible way. Like I said, I have a degree in exercise science and I have certifications, and I feel like I have a great grasp on the science of it and how to make somebody faster and the best they can be. But so much of coaching comes down to the personal relationship and really getting to know that individual and what motivates them and what barriers they have in their own life. And those are the things that no coaching relationship is the same. I interact with every client that I have in a different way because everyone has different needs. And it's a really beautiful thing, the way that I get to know people and step into their lives. And I feel really lucky that people trust me with the information that they give me and allow me to help them achieve their goals.
So far in the interview, you have mentioned two things that I want to point out or emphasize as something that, as lessons that I want to draw from this interview, because the purpose from the beginning of this channel has always been to not just give information to people. After all, they can look for X or Y kind of information out there in the internet. So I want to draw lessons from interviews and any other video that I make. You mentioned time management, and you didn't mention by name, but you mentioned discipline. But when you said before 6 a.m., are those two, I don't know how to call it in English, maybe characteristics of your life, the same thing that gives you success in your coaching?
Yes, I think so. I think that those two attributes or characteristics are something that I carry with me in all aspects of my life. And I think it's what gives success in many realms. I think that those two things hold true no matter what you're doing, whether you're a business person or a sports professional or in school or whatever you might be. Those are two things that I think as human beings, we can all relate to. And if we want to find success, we have to find the ability to chase after those things, to chase after the ability to manage our time well and to be disciplined. But I would add that even on top of that is, in order to maintain those things, in order to manage your time well, in order to be disciplined, you really have to love what you do. Because if you don't love what you're doing, it's going to be infinitely harder to stay disciplined to it. And that's something that I've found to be very true in my life. Is it's not difficult for me to be disciplined in my training because I love it. Sure, there are some days where I have to really lean into that discipline because, man, maybe I don't want to do that workout that day, but I'm going to push for it anyways. But the overarching thing is, I want to be the best I can be. So even though I don't want to do that particular workout that day, I still remember I do love this sport and I want to be the best I can be. And in order to achieve that, I have to do this. And so that overarching love, I feel like, is what makes that discipline easy.
I'm pretty sure that you will agree with me if I say that time management and discipline has been the base, among other things, of two of your biggest achievements in your career. I want to mention two of them, two specific ones. Your time record at the whole enchilada. When I read somewhere out there in the internet universe that you have an 8,000 feet downhill, I was like, man, the highest point in Puerto Rico is like 4,500 feet. So we are talking almost double the height of that mountain. That's called Cerro Punta here in Puerto Rico, not too far away from my house. How did you prepare for that? How did you achieve that time record?
Yeah, I mean, I think that so much of back to discipline. So much of everything that we do to prepare for our goals So I guess preparing for things like World Cups, like the UCI races in Puerto Rico, like Leadville, all of those preparations also help me for something like the whole enchilada. So I think the training is very similar, but where that effort really differed for me was it was completely alone. And so I had to prepare to be out there alone and to pace myself alone and to know that route alone. And so I did practice it. I trained on those trails. I scoured the internet for information. I had all kinds of, powered targets and maps and everything you can imagine from a preparation standpoint. But one of the biggest things that I think is overlooked was the mental preparation needed to do that, because I had to mentally prepare for the fact that it was going to be hard and there wasn't going to be, like in a race, someone next to me to push me to go further. I had to find that within. And so I spent a lot of time mentally preparing and reminding myself of the fact that it is going to be hard, and that's okay, and that's what you want. And when it gets hard, that's the time when you get to dig in. And I think it's only because of that mental preparation that when I was faced with those challenges, instead of being surprised or shocked or even scared by it, instead my brain thought, oh, we've prepared for this. We're excited for this because we're ready for this. So I think a lot of the preparation for that one came from a mental aspect.
And for the benefit of people who have never heard before about the whole enchilada, how would you describe that place?
The whole enchilada is a trail in Moab, Utah, and it's known for the descent. So it's about a 25-mile descent, and it goes downhill it descends 8,000 feet. And so for my attempt, I climbed to the top of that. So I climbed 8,000 feet, and then I turned around at the top and I descended down the single track. And so it was a 3.5-hour climb and then a single track descent. And it's very chunky and challenging, typical desert style terrain descent that just takes your body and your bike to its absolute limit. It's my favorite trail in the world.
Yeah, and of course, I don't want to diminish anybody out there who is watching this video, but it sounds like that the whole enchilada is not for the weekend warrior or just the average cyclist. I mean, in terms of the complexity of the trek, right?
Yeah, I mean, people go out there all the time and attempt it on all kinds of different setups and skill levels, but I think that's to do it fast, you have to be very skilled. And I think that's something important for people to take away is anybody can attempt anything. And I encourage them to. I encourage you to test your limits and to find what you're capable of, because it's probably more than you even think. But it's also important to have your own goals. So if you are a weekend warrior, I think it's great to go out and attempt the whole enchilada, but understand that you're going to be walking. There's going to be things that are scary and challenge you beyond your current levels. And honestly, the very first time many years ago I rode the whole enchilada, I felt the same. It was overwhelming to me. It was so hard. And that's one reason why I fell in love with it and why I wanted to come back and attempt the fastest known time and document it. Because to me, it was a story of overcoming, and it was a story of that learning process and realizing over time that what once was a scary endeavor is now something that I feel like I can conquer. And we only get those type of success stories when we do push in a little bit over our head sometimes, and then realize how much we can rise to the challenge.
So we can say that the whole enchilada was for you some sort of calculated risk.
Yes, definitely.
Really calculated. I mean, because when you describe the process of preparation, that I was like, was she preparing for the word or what? Yeah. There is something, or I should say, another achievement you have that maybe wasn't that difficult in terms of technical trails, but it was equally hard, I think, or even harder. Leadville 100. I mean, you didn't just ride the Leadville 100, you won it. Can you briefly describe that experience of doing that? Because before you answer, it scares me because Leadville is I think, at 10,000 feet above sea level. I live here in Puerto Rico at just 80. So it's a world of difference. I myself, I will have to spend like a year preparing just for that race. But can you describe how was your experience in that race?
Yeah, Leadville is a beast of a race like no other. For those that don't know, Leadville is a 104-mile mountain bike race, and it takes place all above 9,000 feet of elevation, and it tops out above 12,000 feet. And so they call it the race across the sky. And that's because at many times you feel like you're on top of the world because you're so high out there. But with that comes so many challenges. At that elevation, it's hard to breathe. It's hard to eat. It's hard to maintain the speed that you want to maintain for that long. And so that race was a really unique learning experience for me. I think I'm an extremely calculated person. I think that's something that people have probably learned in this interview is I'm very, very calculated. And so going into Leadville, I had all of those same calculations. And training for it, I was extremely calculated. But in racing, you can't control everything, but you can control how prepared you are. And so I went to that race and I stood on that start line knowing that I had done everything I could possibly do to prepare. And then I let go. And I was able to just allow that preparation to show itself in the race. And I think a huge piece of that was not worrying about some of the little things and focusing on the fact that I had already done the big things. And when you do the big things, those little things that happen during the race that are unexpected and maybe even challenges, difficult, they don't matter as much because you've already put in the time and the preparation for the things that do matter. And so that race was a really beautiful experience for me to watch all of that preparation shine through and to let go and just allow it to happen. And I feel like focusing on the experience was a really big key to me in that race. I found myself in the lead at mile 70, and that's 34 miles to lead that race to the finish. And instead of feeling the panic and the stress of, oh my goodness, what if someone catches me? I just paused, not literally, mentally, and thought, this is what it feels like to lead Leadville at mile 70. I wonder what it feels like to lead at mile 80. And I just took it in these incremental chunks and experienced what it feels like to be in the lead at every mile. And 1 mile at a time is what took me to the finish line there.
You know, you reminded me about something here without knowing about a soldier, a well-known soldier. He's from Texas. His name is I forgot the name. Sorry. He wrote the book Lone Survivor. Marcus Luttrell. That's his name. He was the only Navy SEAL who survived to a deadly mission. He was with his legs shattered, and he did pretty much the same thing you did. he threw a literal rock to a certain distance, and he crawled to that rock and threw it again and threw it again until he reached a safe spot. So pretty much that's one of the lessons we can draw from this interview. Just to review, we are learning here about discipline, time management, mental toughness. That's like a recurring topic with many elite cyclists. Like Kate Corney has talked about that. In fact, just a few minutes before this interview, I was reading an announcement she made about a podcast in which she was featured, talking about mental toughness, all that stuff, mental management. You also talk about calculated preparation, not just preparation, but calculated. And talking about calculated preparation, you are about to really start your 2023 race season. And one of the first few races, if not the first races, are here in Puerto Rico. How have you prepared for this and the rest of the season?
Yeah, I am so excited to come to these races in Puerto Rico. I came last year and it was an amazing start to the year. And so it was a for sure thing that they were going to be on my calendar again. And I think that the first races of the season are really special for a variety of reasons. One, I think, these races in Puerto Rico, they're C1s and a HC. And so they have a lot of points. And as we're getting closer to the Olympics, those points are super important. And getting those points early in the year also allows us to have good start positions at the World Cups. They allow us to get into the short track races at the World Cups. And so being able to get in some of those points early in the year sets us up for some of the goals that we have later. Also, I think that early races are a really good time to evaluate some of those calculated preparations you've made. And so one of the things is, just because something worked for you last season doesn't mean it'll work this season. And that's nothing wrong with that. It just means that you need to be flexible enough to make adjustments. And so the early season races are a time to evaluate if things are working well. And that could be anything from nutrition to your warm-up, to your race strategy, and just entering those races with an open mind and being willing to make adjustments. And then finally, the first race of the season, they work as sort of a benchmark to see how all of your off-season preparation went. So as athletes, when we're not racing, when you see that we're not on the race course and we're away on our off season, most of us are training really, really hard. So I just finished a huge training block that I did in California. In about a month, I did 116 hours on the bike. And a lot of that is, I'm putting in work for the whole season. And so those hours that I'm out there and the intervals that I'm doing, I'm thinking about those goals and those dreams that I have months in advance. And so I think another thing we can take away is that delayed gratification, the fact that you're out there putting in work, not to see the success tomorrow, but to see it months down the road. And that's something that makes me feel really excited as well.
I'm really excited too for your visit to Puerto Rico. I remember you from last year. I was doing a course recon at Salinas for the Tropical MTB Challenge. Unfortunately, I could not race because I had some issues that prevented me from doing so. Hopefully, I will race this year in the lowest category. I'm able to find in the mountain bike commission just to challenge myself. I mean, I'm not a professional racer, so I don't worry too much about the outcome of the race. But I'm really excited to see you here, to see the other ladies and gentlemen who come here. I have some scheduled for interview when they arrive here in Puerto Rico. I just can't mention them here, not because they asked me to do so, because I just want to have the interview recorded before I say something, because I mean, I don't want to risk that something happens and then the interview doesn't get recorded. Before we finish, Hannah, before this interview, we recorded a special video for a surprise. I don't want to mention here, of course, because it is a surprise, but I do want you to say just a brief advice to the younger guys. I mean, there is a lot of growth here in the 11, 12 years range. Also in the junior category, there are many great cyclists there. Would you share some pieces of advice for them so they can continue that growth?
Yeah. That's so exciting. I'm so happy to hear that there's, a big junior contingent there. And I think that, as a junior, you look up at your dreams and your goals and maybe athletes that you want to beat one day. And I think the biggest thing as a junior is to take it one step at a time and to celebrate each of those steps, because let's say you need to improve 20% in order to be the best in the world. 20% can seem really intimidating, but improving 1% 20 times is very achievable. And so just focus on improving one small thing, just being a little bit better than you were before every time you get on your bike. And it's inevitable that you'll get there. You can do it if you keep your mind to it and you just focus on those little tiny steps.
Hannah Otto, professional cyclist from the USA. Thank you so much for this wonderful interview. I'm pretty sure guys here in Puerto Rico and other places in Latin America will cherish this opportunity to hear you speaking, not for me, but for all of them.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.